About 2 weeks ago, I did this video on the truth about us. And I told you about the time when I had to present a paper at a teaching conference in small town, Oxford, Ohio. But because there were no flights into Oxford, I took a flight from Vancouver to Cincinnati. And then I had to take a taxi from the Cincinnati airport to Oxford, which would have been a 1-hour drive. Now, I was already anxious, and then when the taxi turned up and I saw a van that looked like this, I totally panicked. So a friend of mine asked me why I had even bothered to do that particular conference when I obviously was nervous about doing it. And I said to her, I wasn't willing to allow self-doubt to rob me of an opportunity. And I believe for many of us, self-doubt regularly and routinely gets in our way and hinders us from fulfilling the dreams that we have, from following through with good ideas that we have, from grasping our vision and fulfilling our dreams. Because as it is, it's self-doubt that gets in our way and stops us when we have an idea to, for example, create art or start a blog or write a particular blog post which we, think maybe a little bit over the top. It's self-doubt that stops us when we say, I want to start a YouTube channel, but no, I don't think I will. Or when we say, I want to apply for that job, but then we think, nah, I don't think I'm going to do that. I don't want to put myself out there. Or when we say, I don't want to start that meditation practice that I've always wanted to do because I've started so many things and I failed. Or when we say, I'm not going to try diet again. I'm not going to try changing my eating habits because I've tried so many times. It's self-doubt that hinders us from following through. It's self-doubt that tells us we're not good enough. Our idea isn't important enough. Nobody wants to listen to us. And it's self-doubt that tells us we don't have the resources, we don't have the friends, we don't have the connection, we don't have the time, we don't have the skills. We don't have the talent. And like many of you, I've had the very same thoughts. But I'm learning that the more I try to deal with the self-doubt and face it and not give in to it, is the less it holds me a prisoner. And so today I want to talk about how I deal with my self-doubt. And I'm going to tell you about an experience I had, which always reminds me about why I need to put aside self-doubt and still make the effort, even when I'm not sure if I will succeed. In early 2000, my family and I migrated from Jamaica to Vancouver. And one of the first weekends that I was here, I basically spent an entire weekend on the computer applying for jobs. But I sent out 200 job applications, got 4 responses, and got 1 offer for an interview. Now, I got that job, but it wasn't the job that I had my eyes on. It was a decent job, but it was teaching students who were preparing for college and university. And I saw it as my first job in Canada, but having taught for a few years at the University of the West Indies, I wanted a job at a university or a college. So that was my big goal. But considering I sent out 200 applications and I only got one interview and a job offer, it had whittled away a bit of my confidence, because 200 is a lot, right? But I kept looking at the big colleges and universities because I wanted one of those jobs. And in about October of that year, I applied for a job at one of the big schools. But I kept thinking, should I really apply? Should I really put myself out there again? Because the jobs that I had applied for, those 200, were not the big schools yet, because I was aware I never had Canadian experience. And I knew, and when I had looked at those requirements, they all asked for about 2 years Canadian experience. So I felt they would at least need some Canadian experience. And I couldn't apply for those then because I did not have any Canadian experience. But having taught at this particular school for a while, I thought, maybe I could try. And I spent a few days kind of, should I try? Should I not try? Should I apply? Am I supposed to reject me? How will I feel? And I had all of those thoughts in my mind, but I decided that if I didn't try, I wouldn't know. So I applied. But before I applied, I told a colleague at the school I was working at. And she said to me, why would you do that to yourself? Clearly you don't have the Canadian experience that they're asking for. Why would you put yourself out there like that? And despite that, I still applied. Because that was the second thing I learned. Don't share your dreams with people who don't have your back. I applied anyway. And they responded. And I really shouldn't have been surprised, because I wrote a cover letter. And I used the strategies that I spoke about in this video. And I did my resume according to this, what I told you in this video. And I knew that I would at least get a call back. And I did. I got a call. And for me, it built my confidence a little bit. Well, a lot. Because I thought, I'm an immigrant. I know nobody. I have no contacts. And all I had was the strength of a cover letter and my resume and experience. And yet they called. So I prepared. I spent the next week preparing because I had to do a lesson demo. And I kept practicing. Okay, I'm going to stand like this. And when I do the PowerPoint, I'm going to have the look. And I'm going to point. And I'm going to be magnificent. And I'm going to be glorious. And they're going to love me. And they did. I went to that interview and I saw them nodding. Until they asked me a behavioral question. And I felt the room change. I told them what I thought was a good response, but it was not a response based on Canadian culture. But I thought that was just one thing, no problem. So when I left the interview, I went home happy. I said to my husband, I nailed it, baby, I nailed it. And then the following week, when they called, they thanked me and told me that they were impressed. They actually called. But I didn't get the job. And that was so devastating. Because that was a tough interview. With a 9-panel interview, I had to teach in front of these people I'd never seen before. And I knew I did well, but I didn't get the job. And I was so crushed. I was crushed for a long time. But after about 5 days, I decided to call back to get feedback, because I wanted to know what I had done that I needed to not do the next time. And that's another lesson I learned. There is no failure. There is feedback. So it's not failure. So when self-doubt comes and says, oh, but remember you failed the last time. There is no thing like failure. It's feedback that gives us information for the next time. So when I called, I was told that I was not yet ready for the Canadian classroom culture. And it was true. I had only been in Canada for about 3 months. And I knew it. It made sense. I said, okay, I know what I'll do. I'm going to work on whatever it is that I need to do. And as I also said in that video, I learned that I would be valuable if I could solve a problem. Because that's what employers want, right? People who can solve problems. People who are aware of the potential problems. And I was not aware of potential classroom, college problems. So I said, okay. I was a bit discouraged. I was a little sad, and I thought it took so long for me to get an opportunity. And the big schools were not advertising like every month. So anyway, they advertised for the January semester. And I knew that they would advertise again by about March for the next semester. So I kept getting my experience, and I kept working in the job that I was at. It was not the ideal job, but I kept aware of what I needed to learn to make me a better teacher for the college classroom. And in about March, I emailed the head of the department again, and I said, I applied for a job. In October, I did an interview. I'm just wondering if by chance there's an opening again, because I really would love to teach here. To my surprise, the man responded that evening. And he said, we were very impressed with your interview skills. We are impressed with your teaching skills. And I'm about to retire. But you've written me on the right day, because I want to do something good before I retire. I'm going to pass your resume to my colleague in another department, because I know he's looking for someone. And I'll let him know that he doesn't need to interview you again, because you did a good interview. And I think by now you have a little bit more Canadian experience. Wow. So that's the next thing I learned. Sometimes no means not yet. It isn't no, it just means not yet. He passed my resume on to someone in another department. The person gave me a call maybe 6 weeks after. So I was waiting and waiting and wondering and waiting. And then the person called. It was a contract job. It was not a tenure. It wasn't for tenure. It's a contract job, but at a big school. Person called and said, we need someone to start next week. Can you start? Yes, I can. And that's how I started teaching in the big college system. And I learned along the way that I could not let self-doubt get in my way, because it's very easy. It's very easy to say, I'm not going to do this because I could fail. And you might fail. But until you try, you won't know. Suppose I had not put in my application at all. Suppose I had listened to that colleague. And suppose I had thought that no meant no. Okay, it does mean no. If a woman says no, or a man says no, it's no. But no to your dreams, no to your vision, no to the thing that has been burning inside of you for a long time. No doesn't have to mean no. It could just mean not yet. So when my friend asked me, why did I still go even though I was nervous? That was why. I had learned that self-doubt was something that I had to live with. I had learned that I would always may always doubt myself. But I learned that the more I said yes to opportunities, was the less I would pass up on opportunities. I just needed to try. I just needed to be willing to take that step forward, just in case. I just needed to keep hope alive. And that's what self-doubt does. It makes us not hope. It makes us say, we're not good enough. We're not smart enough. We don't know enough people. We don't have enough resources. It makes us doubt our ability to succeed. But I want to encourage you today. If you have a dream that you've been pushing aside, if you have a major goal that you have been ignoring because you're afraid, if you have an idea that you think could help to make the world a better place, to make the life for your family better, to make you feel fulfilled as you use the gifts and talents that you've been given, if you have that burning inside of you, but self-doubt has been standing in your way, I'm going to encourage you today to take that step, to ignore the voice that has been keeping you back and has been blocking you from taking the opportunities that have been presented to you. And I'm going to encourage you to go forward, to do what you want to do what you feel you need to do. I'm going to encourage you to be brave, to be bold. And as Nike says, I'm going to encourage you to just do it.